as you work through your career, there will be things that you like doing, and there will be other things that you're really good at. They may or may not be the same things, but you should pursue both. It's very, very important to pursue both.
You're about to enter the Archgyan Podcast.
Archgyan Podcast.
India's first and very own architecture podcast, where you'll hear the insights, experiences, and journeys from India's leading architects. No matter what your skill level is, together, we'll build on our knowledge and share architecture's greatest stories ever told. Now, here's your host, Manish Paul Simon.
Hey guys, welcome to yet another episode of the Archgyan Podcast. This is part 2 of our 2-part series with Senior Architect and BIM lead Saurabh Goenka. On the previous episode, we spoke about Saurabh's journey into architecture, his role as a BIM lead and Senior Architect at S9 Architecture, an introduction to building information modeling, and lots more. If you didn't get to listen to the first part, just head to archgyan.com/18. Now, on this episode, we dig deeper into what building information modeling, aka BIM, is all about. We discuss topics such as what is BIM, what does a BIM project entail, the cost of BIM, BIM in India, and lots more. There is some amount of technical jargon in this episode, but no worries. You can head to archgyan.com/19, where you not only get to listen to the episode, but also refer to the extensive show notes, all to help you understand our topics better. Before we head to the episode, it would be great if you guys could follow us on Instagram, where we go by the handle of Archgyan, that's ARCHGYAN. We put up behind the scenes footage, resources, daily gyan, and lots more, all to help you become better architects. Now, let's get right to the episode and figure out what building information modeling is all about. Let's go. Let's talk about BIM. How would you define BIM, especially for the listeners in India? What is BIM?
BIM to me is, like I said before, is a methodology. It is not a tool. It is a collaborative process of creating coordinated information. Coordinated, consistent, and computable information about a building. And then you are using 3D model, a central system of 3D models, rather than a set of 2D drawings to achieve the building or the design. I think it's a really new way of working that streamlines your workflow, and it uses an integrated approach to everything.
Awesome. All right. And what does a typical BIM workflow look like? What does it entail?
On a project at S9, let's say, on every project, are you saying workflow related to?
Yeah, right from your design to documentation to coordination with your consultants and project execution, construction documents, all that.
Right. So in most of our projects, when we're starting off, we're all over the place. Basically, we're using a lot of softwares. We're using Revit, Rhino, some CAD, some SketchUp, some Photoshop. Anything that takes to figure out what we want to do.
Right.
We would typically start using Revit at sometimes in schematic, but definitely in design development, and then bring it through construction documentation, construction administration, and then eventually facilities management. We do a lot of performance analysis, constructability analysis using the model. Once the model is in construction administration, it's passed over to construction managers or general contractors who really take the model to the next level of detail and do quantity takeoffs, sometimes manufacturing, sometimes production, and installation as well. So while you're working in the model, I think the model-based framework helps you ensure accuracy because as you're moving things around in the plan, they are moving in the elevations in the sections as well. When you're adding windows in your exterior wall, your window schedules are getting updated. So instant 3D visualization also helps us.
Right.
But typically, as you go through the process, design development, I think, is the phase where a lot of our workforce and energies go into the project and I would say design development and then beginning phase of construction documentation, because that is really the time when we are trying to figure out for ourselves what this building is going to be. And the more time and energy invested during those phases helps us better as the project progresses in the future.
And everything is on the cloud, right?
Depends on the project. We try to do everything on the cloud if we can. But there, in today's work environment, there are still projects where some of the consultants are not using BIM, which is obviously very sad. But in those cases, we end up just having our project on our server and we exchange that information weekly or bi-weekly, depending on the stage of the project. But yes, our goal, or rather interest, is to have every project on the cloud.
All right. And as per my experience, I have a BIM lead in my office as well. He gets annoyed at the most minuscule details. So is it the same for you as well?
Yes. I think it's very important, like they say, God is in the details, right? It is very important to look at the details because small things matter a lot. And as my role as a BIM lead is less about the software and more about the process, where I am always insistent on doing things the right way. And again, when I talk to people, I'm not saying that my way is the right way or there is only one right way, but I am sharing what I think is the best way or good way to do it. And I am encouraging everybody to question my way and tell me if there is a better way to do it, because we are all in this together and we are trying to figure out a best way for the firm as a whole. So I get very finicky about small things, but at the same time, I am sitting there and in my mind, I'm there to listen more than to speak. And that is the attitude I think helps me a lot in working with people, different people with different skills and knowledge and experience and motivation,
Awesome. And since you had some exposure to Revit, but not exactly BIM. So if someone starting off wants to get into BIM, right, how would that person get into it? Is it only after you join a firm, or could you do it on your own?
Oh, you could do it, definitely. Definitely you can look up. Even today, I am looking up information almost all the time, and the best way to learn is to just get into the scheme of things and just start doing it. Again, Revit is just a software. You have to understand the software, but you have to understand the way of working. I think the process, the way you work, or what are you trying to achieve by doing what you're doing, is what makes BIM, a great process. So, reading about things, trying it out, and always constantly evaluating if this is the best way forward or best approach forward. And then the model or the information will support you through the process, because the process is never ending. It will go all the way to through the life of a building, and our buildings stay forever. It's not like a music CD or an album which was a bad album, so we just throw it out of the window in a bin, and then we do another one and it's a hit, and then we're all good, right? You do bad building, it will stay there for several years, and you'll look at it every day and it'll remind you of what you should have done. So it's a very big responsibility in our hands, and I think a process such as BIM is helping you through the entire life cycle.
Awesome. And one of the reasons I would like to do BIM is because automation is something which can cut down monotonous tasks, right? So could you maybe give us a small gist on automation in architecture, or if you guys are actually doing it?
We are doing it. I would like to do it more than we currently are doing it. But automation comes at different levels. I mean, within the BIM environment, it's again sort of tying back to my old statement of separating the known from the unknown, where you're going to always be designing unknown, and there's nothing that can be automated about it. But then the processes that are tedious or with minor adjustments can be automated. So Dynamo, we are using some of it to do, let's say, facade studies. The New York Wheel project, for example, has got this louver facade system, which has this rhythm of different angles as it goes around the building, sometimes to capture the view, at other times to hide what's behind. So
awesome.
We worked out this really cool script in Dynamo, and really changed, rather than having to orient each of the panels at a certain angle all through the entire building, which would have taken us, several days of work. We just by creating that script, we were able to achieve the same result in 2 or 3 hours actually. And the best part about that was that we could, just by tweaking a few numbers, we could get several options or several different configurations. So we're not using as much Grasshopper right now, just because our designs don't really have the need or the necessity to use it.
But Grasshopper gives you more flexibility in design ideation and all that, right?
It does. Absolutely. Like, especially if you were looking for curvilinear forms or freeform surfaces, where, there are, like Zaha says, there are 360 degrees, why use only one, right? So for that kind of work, yes, absolutely, Grasshopper's limits are endless. I think Dynamo is a more restricted environment, but at the same time, I think it's a good restriction, because there's always, it sort of gives you some context and some presets than going out in a world where you have a blank slate to work off of. It's like, building in the dense neighborhood of New York City versus building in like vast lands somewhere in open deserts, So the context, it really changes, I would think.
Right. And since you did a master's in urban design, is BIM also prevalent in a lot of urban design projects?
Not so much right now. I think at least from what I have seen, it's just the scale of the project, and the process itself is so long that everything is at very conceptual scale. It's almost like single line diagrams until you get to the real documentation and design and construction, right? So a better part of the project in terms of the timeline is always in very, very schematic or conceptual stage. There's more reports and information, and then in terms of drawings, there's just like plans for the most part. But once you start getting to actual documentation, I would still use BIM if I had the opportunity. Once you are working with your consultants, you're doing design development and construction documentation, I think BIM is the way to go. Because again, to me, CAD is part of BIM too. Everything that you can use to support your process is BIM, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
A pencil or a paper is part of BIM too, which is a sketch that is translated in Photoshop and brought into Revit and made a PDF and sent to the client. It's all BIM, right? It's all part of the process. So you're just making your process more informative, and the model helps you having all the information in one place for everybody to work off of, including your client, including your contractors, and any change is being transformed or transferred to all the parties involved in real time. So that's the benefit of the integrated approach to the project.
Awesome. And you guys use Bluebeam as well for design documentation and cross collaboration?
We do a lot of Bluebeam. I think the power of Bluebeam is more during design documentation and construction administration as well. Like we're reviewing a lot of submittals, RFIs on Bluebeam. It's just like a tool which is designed to support architects than any other PDF tool,
right.
And we are using it very, very
awesome.
We are on almost everything we do is using Bluebeam. Yes.
And for our listeners, Bluebeam is just a PDF tool, but it's very sophisticated and it's pretty useful.
Yeah, you can scale drawings. It's a vector-based environment as well. So a lot of drawings that come off of our Revit models or our CAD files can be edited or marked up or adjusted in this environment too. It's a very powerful tool and does many more things than typical PDF software would do.
All right. And you guys work with a Clarity server, or is it BIM 360 for the cloud-based?
We started using Clarity very recently, and I am starting to like it. It's a great portal, I think, especially in my mind, for firm standardization and for really doing a quick comparison across different projects or different works that we are doing.
Right.
It's a great tool also for non-Revit users, because you can, whatever Revit can log, you can pull it out and sort of use it in Clarity, evaluate it very fast. So I am starting to like it. I think it can do a lot of things that BIM 360 can do too. So we are using both on depending on the need of the project. But yes, Clarity is being tested and used all through our office right now.
Awesome. All right, Saurabh. So you've seen the power of BIM and the kind of impact it can give, right? So when do you think BIM will be implemented in a larger scale, especially in India? I mean, it's not even implemented, but still.
That's the sad part. It's very unfortunate. And I am working with a few people in India to actually see what we can do more to improve the nature of BIM adoption in India. And what I'm really sad about is that a lot of work, there's not a lack of knowledge or...
Yeah, for example, my office, right, we do a lot of overseas projects, but there's hardly any local project, and all overseas projects are with BIM.
Exactly. And a lot of work, like even my firm, we are outsourcing a lot of work at times to firms in India who do the work for us.
Right.
In terms of design documentation. And then there's, in fact, even the projects in India, people are hiring architects outside India or these firms outside India to do projects in India, and these people are hiring Indians to do work for them. So I think it's the awareness, or it's the knowledge that needs to be spread around. It's not that we don't have the knowledge or the information. It's more about awareness of telling people that, we are actually capable of doing things by ourselves. It has to start at the ground root level, right? Like, I think at the educational level in schools, we should be trained or told or taught the benefits right and when we start learning architecture. And the second thing is the laws or the policies, the way they are written, have to talk about sustainability, talk about, our laws are, from what I've seen, our laws are very, very objective.
And archaic as well, right? It's not in par with what's happening in the world right now.
Exactly. And unfortunately, a lot of construction is also happening without architects in some places. It's not happening you would not see that in cities like Delhi and Mumbai because of the laws. But then a lot of India, there's work that is happening where people think that architect is not really needed. Because I have done this before. I know how to do it, and I will do it 20 times again if you want me to, right? So I think that's what needs to change, and and it's changing. It's changing for the better. But then what I see as missing is the fact that we are still trying to give work to people outside and having them transform India into another Shanghai or Hong Kong, which I do not like. We are what we are, and whatever we should do, I think we need to make sure we continue our legacy as a unique country that we are.
Right. Yeah, I feel the biggest factor that BIM is not implemented heavily is the cost, right? Cost is a big factor because people have this preconceived notion that I'm not earning as it is as an architect, and if I add BIM, it would enhance the burden on me.
Which is, to my mind, not so true, because initial cost, you have to look at the life cycle analysis. A lot of times we have this short-sighted approach of looking at what I am spending now. And there are a lot of inbuilt costs or benefits that cannot be monetized, or it cannot be physically evaluated. But if you look at the whole cycle of the project, from, let's say, when you get the project to the time when you deliver, which is usually could be from anywhere starting minimum 2 years to up to 8 to 10 years, depending on the scale of the project. So the cost involved in buying the softwares or setting up a BIM environment, to me, is very, very minimal as compared to the time, energy, focus, mental health, frustration, sleepless nights, or client frustration, bad meetings, miscoordination, RFIs, unhappy people, incorrect construction, redesign. If you start evaluating all of those things, you'll realize that software is nothing as compared to what you're getting into. You're really building a big building. Software cost as compared to the cost of building maybe probably less than 0.25%.
But you spoke about sleepless nights, so I'm guessing you have lesser number of sleepless nights because of BIM.
I do. I have my sleepless nights are usually not because of work.
Right.
Let's say, and the BIM is one reason why that is happening. Yes.
Awesome. All right, Saurabh, that is pretty insightful information that you shared with us. Let's jump to the quickfire round and we'll wrap this up.
Okay.
So, what do you know now today that you didn't know back then?
The reality of architecture. I used to be very idealist in my approach when I started. I still am, but now I know that design is not the only thing in architecture, and what it takes to build a real building is very different than what I used to think about it.
Awesome. What's one book that's changed everything for you?
I would say Too Big to Fail. It's a book on the financial crisis in 2008, and it gives you the insights of people or interviews with people actually involved during the crisis, and it just changes my perspective of how I look at the world and how there's more to it than what meets your eye.
All right. And what else do you do apart from being an architect? You did mention something called BYOB in the beginning of the episode, so you could probably elaborate on that.
Well, BYOB, I call them as blank your own brain walks. And I do that from time to time. It's especially during the times of stress. It's just, aimless walking is what I do. And I think it helps me a lot sometimes to de-stress, sometimes to generate new thoughts. And really, it's more like, taking a step back and looking at what you have been doing and then planning for the next steps.
So you go to Central Park, is it?
I just walk around the city. It could be, I live very close to the park. So yes, a lot of my time goes in the park, but then, the city has to offer so many little moments, depending on where you're walking, that, and the point of aimless walking is that you don't know where you're walking, right?
Awesome. And apart from Times Square, which is considered as the center of the universe, which is the most happening place in New York, according to you?
Happening, depending on what you want to do, really. I like to walk around High Line a lot, which, if you may know, it's an old train tracks converted into a public space. It's an elevated train track which sort of runs through the buildings, and it really gives you a very different perspective of looking at New York from that one high level, one level up, and you're almost meandering through the buildings while you're walking up on that High Line. So I really enjoy spending time on it. Happening, if you're looking for a Friday night happening, then I like to go to East Village, Lower East Side, which is very close to NYU. And one reason why I like to go there is because it's very not pretentious,
Right.
like the people or the kind of environment, kind of places that are there are very, very true and not fake. And that's the kind of personality I am too. So you can just be yourself when you're visiting East Village.
Yeah, what I've heard about New Yorkers, most of them are generally down to earth compared to the people in the west of US and all that, right?
Who told you that? Well, I thought it was the complete opposite, like people around from rest of the United States, when they come to New York, they are as surprised or shocked by the non-hospital. Well, we are very hospitable, but we are, in New York is a very fast-paced environment. People will look at you, they may or may not smile at you, but it's okay. In Pittsburgh, it was completely different. I would be standing at a red light. There's a car coming, his light is green, he would just still stop and he would let me go because he would just wait for me.
Wow.
And
Awesome.
he's just being nice to me. In New York, like if you bang a shoulder into the other person, he would not turn back and look at you because he does not have that kind of time.
Right.
So very, very cutthroat, but we love our work, we love our city, but not very polite.
You've been there for over 5 years.
Almost 6.5 years now.
Oh, awesome. All right, Saurabh, coming to a close, what one advice would you give to young architects looking at careers as BIM leads and BIM designers? Or in general as well?
It's anything you're doing in your life, really. You have to believe in it, and you have to dream, and think about things that gives you sleepless nights, or rather think about things that make you sleep. There's two things. You have to always think about, and that's how I always thought of things. There will be, as you work through your career, there will be things that you like doing, and there will be other things that you're really good at. They may or may not be the same things, but you should pursue both. It's very, very important to pursue both, because things that you're good at will take you to that next level. But if you don't do the things that you like, then there's no point doing what you're doing,
Awesome, Saurabh. And just a small question, would you advise young students or architects to come to the US and pursue masters, given the fact that now it's a little difficult because of the H-1B problem and all that?
Sure. I think doing a master's in a different environment, more than anything else, changes your or expands your horizon. It just changes your perspective of how you look at things. I would not like whether it's United States or it's London or it's even in India. I think just the grad school or doing something which is completely different, or rather getting out of your comfort zone and exposing yourself to something that you don't have any idea about, will definitely help you grow as an individual. And that's how I think of not only my studies, but the way I think of my work every day is no question is stupid, and I like to do things that I don't know about, because that's how I'm going to know about more things,
Awesome. And any thoughts on maybe what your future plans are?
What future entails for me, I don't know. I want to continue to work as an architect, create beautiful buildings, do good work, and inspire people's lives. Where, how, when, it's really it's not in my hands,
Awesome, Saurabh. That was pretty inspiring for me, and I'm sure all our listeners would love to listen to this episode and your inspiring talk. Thank you, Saurabh, for doing this.
Thank you, Manish. I think I have to say you're doing a commendable job by creating this platform. I was very excited to know about it when I did, and I got a chance to listen through some of your previous work, and it's just great to have somebody making that effort to share and to educate people about small things that architecture or involves as a profession, because it's part of everybody's lives. Even though you may not be an architect, at every point in your life you're experiencing something related to architecture.
Absolutely.
So thank you.
Yes, sharing is caring, right? And
Yes.
That's the best part of today's world.
Yes.
All right, Saurabh, what is the best way our listeners could get in touch with you? In case they would like to further ask you questions, or maybe...
You could reach me at s.goenka at s9 as in number 9 architecture.com. Or you could reach me out. You could look up for me at Saurabh Goenka and check out my LinkedIn profile.
All right, Saurabh, thanks a lot for doing this. Guys, you'll get all the show notes and links on archgyan.com/18. We'll put up all the details, and we hope to have you guys in the future for more episodes. And we hope to have you, Saurabh, as well, and talk more about BIM and the world we live in. Thanks a lot, Saurabh.
Thank you, Manish.
You've been listening to the Archgyan podcast. We're still building the community. Please share this knowledge with someone you know who could benefit. Just send them to archgyan.com, where you'll find our free newsletter and for more podcast episodes. Search for the show on any major podcasting platform. Don't forget to subscribe where you're listening right now. And if you liked it, leave a rating or review.